Hello, this is Zamanzadeh from ZZNetworking.com. In order to see better, press this icon to view full screen. In this tutorial, we're going to begin where we left off last time, talking about constraints. We're going to try inserting rows into tables that have constraints. So let's go ahead and code the following. Well, suppose we want to insert something into con1. Well, we describe the table con1. We can see their columns, their data types, and their lengths. So we go ahead and let's go ahead and try and insert the following code. Now, we try to insert this code and we get an error message. And why is that? Well, it gives us a generic Oracle error message number. It says integrity constraint violated, and over here it mentions a name of a constraint, and the last two letters are FK, foreign key. So it's violated parent key not found. Well, let's go ahead and see about con2. Let's see if we can insert something into con2. Here we can see once again the column names, the data types, the lengths. So let's go ahead and try and insert this into con2. Well, we go ahead and once again we get the same error message, and it gives us the name and of course FK, foreign key violated. Well, why is that? Well, if you recall, when we created these tables, we made foreign key references to each one. So let's go ahead and view the constraints we have. Now, you may want to try and code this, which I have here on the screen. I, on the other hand, have several tables with several constraints, so to make this easier, I'm gonna slightly modify this code. I'm gonna say where table name like con with a percentage, so that way I only view the tables that concern us. Now, when you get to your tables, you can see the table name column up here at the top. You can see the constraint name, the constraint type, and a search condition. Now, if you notice, for the con1 table, we have, well, first of all, let's look at these letters here. P represents a primary key constraint. C represents a check or not null constraint, and U represents a unique constraint, while R represents a forward key constraint. So we look at con1 and con2, and yes, sure enough, in con1 we have an R, forward key constraint, that references con2. And for con2 we also have an R here, which is a foreign key constraint that references con1. So suppose we want to go ahead and insert information without having these constraints being violated. How can we do this? Well, we're going to have to disable a constraint to do this. So go ahead and code the following. Now, in the first code I'm going to put up here, after a second, in the first code I'm going to put up here, I'm going to say alter table con1, disable constraint, and remember how we named our constraints. Table name, underscore, column name, underscore, abbreviation of the constraint. That's one of the reasons why it's important to name your constraints. I say alter table and saying I'm going to disable this constraint, which is a foreign key constraint on the con1 table referencing the con2 table. So, now let me see if I can insert something into con2. Well, I can't because I haven't disabled the foreign key constraint on con2. But I can go ahead and insert something into con1, since I just disabled that constraint. As you can see, when I've executed this code, it says one row inserted. Well, now that I have inserted this row, and now there's the record with a value for the order ID of 100 in the con1 table, can I go ahead and execute this code now into con2 with the same value of 100? And the answer is yes. I go ahead and now I have one row inserted into con1 and one row inserted into con2. This time it didn't give me a message because there's already a row in the table con1 with a value of 100, So when I go to insert a value into con2 with a value of 100, it doesn't violate this foreign key constraint because a row matching it in con1 already exists. Now, suppose we want to go ahead and enable our constraint. You notice to disable it we said alter table con1 disable constraint, the constraint name. To enable a constraint, it's exactly the same, except instead of saying disable, we say enable. So we say alter table con1 enable constraint and then the constraint name. We execute this and the table is altered. Now since we've enabled this constraint, now we can't add any more rows. So this is a problem. How could we deal with this? Well, we could disable it again, or we could just say, well, you know, it's not really important. We don't actually need it. So let's go ahead and just completely drop it. And a way to do that is you say alter table, table name, just drop constraint and the constraint name. We execute this, Control Enter, and the table is altered. If we go back to query our constraints using the following code, we'll notice that when we scroll down to the con1 table, we see that there's 3 constraints on con1. None of them are R, which symbolize a foreign constraint. That constraint is completely deleted. It's been dropped. So, let's go ahead and start inserting more rows. We'll insert first the top row, but there's a problem. And the problem is, if you notice the date, remember we had a check constraint. Notice the date here. The first one gives us an order date of September 12th, 2012. The shipping date is September 10th, 2012. How can we ship something before it was even ordered? So the answer is we had a typo. This 10 here is wrong. We want it to say that the order date was September 12th, 2012, and the ship date was September 14th, 2012. So if we insert this bottom code, sure enough, we get 1 row inserted. If we select everything from con1, we'll see that we have 2 rows, and if we select everything from con2, we only have 1 row inserted. I'm going to go back to con1 temporarily so you can view it better. We have the same row that's in a row that correlates to con2, and then an additional row that is not in con2. Now, let's go ahead and insert a row into con2, the one that's missing. We go ahead and do the following insert and 1 row inserted, so now we have 2 rows in con1 and 2 correlating rows in con2. Now suppose for some reason we want to drop the primary key for con1. We don't want that constraint. Well, you can say alter table con1 drop primary key. We do this and it says this unique primary key is referenced by some foreign keys, in particular the con2 foreign key. So, what do we have to do? We have to say alter table con1 drop primary key and cascade. So we want to cascade the effect. We do this and the primary key is dropped from con1. Now, to wrap this video up, let's go ahead and query our constraints one more time. Here we see that there's no longer a primary key for the con1 table. There's no P there. And in the con2 table, we don't see an R for a foreign key. That constraint was dropped. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you for your time, and may God bless you.